Okay, so we're recording it all. It says it's supposed to auto record, but I don't always trust that. So, first order of business is just running through the agenda really quickly, and it's not like overly complicated or anything, but we're going to run through the NOFA, show you where information's located on both CAPO and OCH websites and HUD. Talk about webinars that are already past, but materials available and things to come, and just a run through of the general timeline. And then we'll talk about the internal competition and go through the RFP, the packet 1, which is the intro and explains everything, packet 2, which is for renewal applications, packet 3, which is for new and reallocated projects, and then some additional information, especially on review and ranking, the team and the process. We had a really good meeting on Thursday to come to some agreements on some of the other pieces. The eSnaps and other resources on the HUD website, we'll touch on those. We've had opportunity with some potential project applicants already today to assist in drilling down into those guides and really trying to find out why a box is grayed and why you can't respond to it. So we'll touch on a couple of those. And then the bonus points for CH and report information on the 0703, which is the income or the employment report that needs to be attached. And so at any point, if you have any questions, just holler, and I'm going to kind of just keep going at a clip, and if I need to slow down, let me know, please. So for what it's worth, there's a recording of the previous iteration of this webinar already on YouTube, and I've shared the link. If you don't have it and want it, I'm happy to share it again. And likewise, this one will be uploaded as well, probably tomorrow some point, most predominantly because there may be other questions that weren't asked in the previous ones, and folks can come through and maybe work on that a little bit. So the first thing, we went through the NOFA What's New document, and let me get to that really quick here. I think this is it, yes. So there were some new things in the competition this year. Let me put that up a little bit, maybe. Whoa, sorry. All right. So this document, which is up on both websites, just kind of runs through the primary changes between 16 and 17 NOFAs. This local competition deadline, the one thing that's relevant for any potential project applicant is the CoC has 15 days from competition deadline by which all potential project applicants are notified of status in the competition. So whether your project has succeeded and will go into the CoC's priority listing, or whether it hasn't, et cetera, et cetera. Our goal, as you'll see in timeline a little bit later, is to have those letters out as soon as possible, and certainly not less than 4 or 5 days before that final deadline, which is like September 13th or something. We have a robust review and ranking timeline planned to make sure we have time to go back and do some clarifying work and whatnot before the final priority listing is determined, so as to be most considerate of all information coming into the review and ranking process and not try to rush it through. So we will make sure we hit that deadline. In the past, there were 2 internal deadlines, so HUD just moved it to 1, which is really nice. Policy priorities are the same. They're kind of referring to 4 now instead of the 7, where ending chronic homeless, family, youth, and veteran were all spelled out as individual. It's kind of review or end all homelessness, period. And then the strategic resource allocation, systemic response to homelessness, and use of the housing first approach. So nothing new there, really. New projects created through reallocation and the permanent housing bonus the last couple of years have only been about permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing. And so both options have a little bit different twists this year. The first is those projects created through reallocation. Those reallocated funds can be used to create the traditional permanent supportive housing that meets the requirement of dedicated plus, which is a new little condition related to the chronic homeless work. And that isn't anything more than a project switch in the project application. So it's not considered a new project, in the scheme of things overall. Rapid rehousing projects, as you can see there, the joint TH and PHRRH component projects. If y'all haven't checked that out yet, and you've got, it's a project type that is developed for areas with a lot of unsheltered folks. And so it's supposed to be more flexible and allow for some differences in areas where there are few resources and it may take folks longer to get into permanent housing. So please do check that out. I don't know the ins and outs of that particularly, but the National Alliance to End Homelessness and I believe the Interagency Council on Homelessness as well have or will have webinars on that particular project component, and I'll show you those websites in a few minutes. The next one is a dedicated HMIS. So I believe that would be for COCs that don't currently have dedicated HMIS, but it could be for your own projects as well. So be sure you read that because I haven't gotten that far yet. And then the last is the opportunity for COCs to reallocate and do the supportive services only for coordinated or centralized systems, which we have done already and is turning out to be a pretty solid and awesome partnership. New projects created through permanent housing bonus is the next, and instead of just the typical PSH and RRH, the joint TH component project is also available as a new project. So please do check that one out as well, and remember that this is kind of the acknowledgement that some areas of the nation have a real struggle with housing and rural areas and resources and whatnot. So this could be a good thing. Next is expanding CoC program funded projects, and these are projects, there's some specific requirements to it. Please mute, please. Thank you. This is a possibility if there are high performing projects, high needs projects and all of that. It's possible to add funds to existing programs or projects. So read through that and how that may or may not apply to your agency. Next we have CoC merger, which does not apply to us, but to encourage smaller regions to be more competitive and work more collaboratively around their own states, I guess. It was possible, or it is possible for COCs to gain an additional 25 points if there's been a merger in the last year. So I think that speaks to HUD having interest in supporting smaller COCs by encouraging larger ones. I don't know what that means for balance of state in the future, but there you go. Tiers 1 and 2 are still in play in this competition. Tier 1 this year is 94% of the CoC's annual renewal demand. Last year it was 93%. So that means that Tier 2 then is 6% plus the funds available for the permanent or the new funds, which is just shy of $200,000. And there is a document in the HUD resources on the HUD exchange that actually says what that number is in terms of the CoC's 94%. So it's a specific number, and we'll plug that in. Here's a little bit of information on the dedicated plus. That's the new potential project type that you can select in your renewal projects and in the reallocated projects. So it's a little nuanced. The joint TH component project, that's new. Rapid rehousing has changed, so be sure you pay attention to this. Significant change to the persons who can be served by a rapid rehousing project. So make sure you read through all of that. And it's in the NOFA as well. System performance measures, that's a report that we have to upload. These forms, for the most part, the forms have been embedded into the renewal project applications. So if there are issues with the form that's been embedded, make sure you go back into your project applicant profile to make some changes. Even though you don't have to upload them, that's the place where you're going to have to make any changes that aren't correct in the information that's auto-populated. We had that come up just earlier today. Certification regarding lobbying and code of conduct. The certification regarding lobbying is something that has to be uploaded, and it's a certification that has to be done before you can access your project application. Code of conduct, there's a form, and I believe we've uploaded it onto both websites that shows which project applications have current codes of conduct on file. If there isn't one listed, or if your agency isn't listed on that form, you will have to go through a little bit of a process that's outlined right here to update that information and make sure that that's available in your eSNAPS stuff that you're doing. And then renewal project applications, it seems that there's an opportunity to pull forward, if you're not going to make any changes, I think, underscore, to the project application that you submitted in 2016, then I believe you can pull that forward. Have any of you done that are on the call?
Joe, I have one project that I'm doing that with, and the other ones I'm making minor changes to. So it's a mixture.
Okay, was it easy to just pull it forward?
Oh yeah, because once you have it in there, I mean, everything is there. All you got to do is review and make sure that it still applies. And if you need to do an adjustment, there are some things like match letters, and those you're allowed to adjust anyway. But anything different, like if you wanted to do the narrative, then you would have to go in and specifically request to modify the narrative. And there's like 5 different areas where you can select to do that. Other ones are pre-selected and allowable to change as you go.
Oh, okay, awesome. So I think some of that stuff was set up so that, you know, HUD's thinking about you, trying to streamline some things, maybe, I don't know. So that's it on the overarching big changes to the competition. Everything else is pretty much status quo. You know, with respect to even the point values that are in the NOFA. A few of them have updated I think it was the system performance and engagement sections, I think, updated points by maybe 5 or 8, but otherwise it's a 200-point scale. One of the big things about the Tier 2 projects this year is that 50 points of the Tier 2 project, individual project application scores will be tied to the overall consolidated application. So that's pretty significant in and of itself. And then again, those projects will be scrutinized individually as HUD moves forward. So any questions on any of these changes at the moment? All right. Next piece that we have here is the websites where information is posted. And you're still seeing my screen, yes? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So this is the web address for ROC's information on CAPO's website. And CAPO, thank you, Claudette, very much for being really quick to have stuff posted. I'm really trying to make sure I do them in enough batches that it makes it worthwhile and not feel so ticky-tacky, but dang, there's a lot of stuff to post. But here's where you'll find everything that we're working on in terms of competition information. And I'll go through a few of these in more detail as we go forward, but you can see the heading here, 2017 CoC funding competition, review and ranking materials. And it's, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Here's that code of conduct list that I referenced a few minutes ago. So make sure that you look at that. There's a blank funding application that's listed on both websites, so you get a sense of what the application, how we're going to have to complete the consolidated application. And I'm working right now, and hopefully in the morning we'll send out generally and then to specific groups requests for information based on what's in those consolidated narrative questions. The CoC priority listing, this is blank. This is the second document that has to be uploaded to complete the CoC's full consolidated application. This is the document ultimately where all of the CoC's projects that are included in the, or successful in the review and ranking process will be included, whether it's renewal, new, reallocated projects. And if you review it, you can see how things are kind of compartmentalized and how the information flows just to get a real good idea. Now, both of these pieces, the funding application and the priority listing, are also included on both websites down below, and you can see 2015's information and 2016. These are the final submitted applications from the last 2 years. So you can always go back and, you know, kind of see how things have progressed. It's kind of interesting. The NOFA's here. This is the full NOFA. I believe it's like page numbers 37 through 60 or somewhere in there, where each section of the consolidated application is broken down and the actual point values are attributed to the questions. So you can actually go through and kind of, you know, do a guesstimate of what the application might score. And interestingly enough, on one of the federal agency websites that I'll go to in a minute, there is actually a tool that's been put out, and I haven't reviewed it yet, where you can actually plug in information and see what your score could be. So that'll be kind of interesting to move through. The NOFA changes and what's new, we just went through that. Competition NOFA, RFP, we'll go through that in a sec, and then so on. There's just all kinds of stuff in here. So some of it applies to you as a renewal project applicant potentially. Some of it applies to you as a new or reallocated project applicant. Excuse me. And some of it applies to everybody, just generally. We'll go back through that in a second. The other website is Oregon Coalition on Housing and Homelessness, and here's the link directly to the ROC page on there. And same thing, the information's all listed, the materials here, not necessarily in the same order, but the materials are all here. And then you go down and then you can see the previous competition information as well. So same information, just two different ways to access it at this point. Any questions? Okay, so taking you to HUD's exchange again, just to make sure we're all on the same page. All right, sorry about this. I want to get to the first CoC page. Okay, so this is the main continuum of care page, and it contains, you know, I'm sure most of you are familiar with everything that you could possibly want to know about continuum of care. Here's the competition link. Here's the competition link for eSNAPs. Different but same. They're related but different, I mean. So here on the CoC competition page, if you click on this link, it will take you to all of the resources that are available for the competition, and they're listed by project applicant, collaborative applicant, which is CAPO, and the role I perform primarily, and then the program registration and the grant inventory worksheet. This year, this is the first time on the grant, for the grant inventory worksheet, that HUD actually, rather than returning it back to me as collaborative applicant and me sending the information out to you, HUD actually produced reports and printed or included them on the website. And so it's only available for 2017. But I like that this is on here, and this is something that they're going to go forward with. So you can actually go in and pull up any continuum of care's grant inventory worksheet from across the country, if you, for reference or have a curiosity or whatever. So you can access this file, and I'm opening it up here to show you, and you're not seeing that, right?
Seeing what?
There, you should see it now.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So this is the grant inventory worksheet, and this includes all of the projects that are eligible for renewal. Okay, this, member back, I guess in like May, I was connecting with you guys to review your GIW information. So this is the result of that. This is our base annual renewal demand that we're starting with, $3,039,212. And that's just in the renewal. So I just wanted you to see that and know that you can access that at any point you want, and you don't have to be, you don't have to be connected to, you know, or you don't have to ask for access or anything like that, like we have to do with the, what do you call it, the HDX stuff. So that's like really super cool. And then, okay, I'm gonna go back to HUD Exchange here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to close that out. Whoops. All right, and the other thing I wanted you to see are two things over here. When you click on either of these two links here, the competition funding availability or eSNAPs, you'll have the opportunity to go to frequently asked questions and the you know, interesting process of ask a question. And this is a TA monitored site, and some of our HUD HQ folks actually monitor it as well, but sometimes it's interesting getting responses back. So under the FAQs, if you have issues with something like we had today on a couple of different places, always come to the FAQs first and see if somebody else has asked the question already. Because remember, everybody else is going through the same processes that we're going through here. And so as questions are asked, these categories will, you know, increase the number of categories and whatnot, and they can change on the daily. So if you have a question that you're just not, you know, finding right away, make sure that you do go through the FAQs and see if your question can be found there. If it can't, then the next opportunity is the ask a question, and just be really clear about what your issue states. You know, if you're asking an eSNAPS question, don't say it's a CoC issue in the subject line. It'll just delay the Q&A a little bit more from the TA's point of view. So please make sure that you pay attention to these things, and the eSNAPS one likewise has some pretty specific guidance, and by project applicant or by collaborative applicant and whatnot. And like I said, if you've got areas in your project application where those reports have been embedded, chances are the information that needs to be updated is in the applicant profile. So there's a guide right here that should help you go right in there and make the updates in the applicant profile, and then that information would roll forward into your project application. Questions? All right. The other websites, let's see. All right, so National Alliance to End Homelessness. Here's the direct link to the 2017 CoC NOFA resources, and they'll be likewise building this page as they go forward. And so this first webinar, I think was just the other day, on the 2nd, preparing for the 2017 Continuum of Care NOFA, and this one was back in May. This first one on the bottom. But they'll be listing all of their webinars on YouTube as well, and on their website here, and you'll have availability of other resources as they get them completed. Here's that CoC score estimating tool that I referenced earlier. I haven't even looked at it yet. And here's a link to the slide deck for the webinar that just happened on the 2nd, August 2nd. And then this is USICH, the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and the CoC resources are listed under Tools for Action. And here's a webinar that came out on the 2nd, Strategies for Success. And they will also be adding resources as the competition progresses and they get materials developed. The only thing you need to keep in mind in reviewing resources for on the NAEH and USICH websites is HUD's information rules. If there's ever a conflict or a discrepancy or whatnot, typo, HUD's guidance will always be on top. So just keep that in mind. I just had a thing come across my desk this morning that I think I forwarded out already about a webinar on August 24th for the joint TH-RRH project. I know your projects have to be in, project applications have to be in prior to that for the internal review and ranking. But if this is a project type that is of definite interest for you, please let me know that. And if there's some, up in the airness, so to speak, about, wanting to potentially wait for the webinar, again, let's talk about that and see what that means. Had no idea that we were going to have some updated project types to put into the mix of things when the original materials and timelines were built. So we're having to punt a little bit, but it's still doable. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to close those two down. All right, next on our list here is the timeline. Oh, I can pull that off of here. All right, so we went over this in the CoC's monthly meeting, and I haven't adjusted anything yet on here. So please just go through and I'm just gonna update a couple or alert on a couple of things here. Deadlines are in red, or things that you really need to pay attention to. And so project application packets, new, renewal, reallocated, whatever they are due to me on Wednesday. Midnight's fine, I don't care. If you do need an extension, please request that sooner than later. A number of you have. As an FYI, the requests have been to Friday the 11th, but I'm actually going to be out of town all weekend. So if you do request an extension, I will give you until Monday morning, the 14th. But request ahead of time. And those extensions are only good until I open my email Monday morning. So everything needs to be waiting in my inbox because, again, we've got a kind of a robust timeline that I need to keep. So beyond the 14th, nothing will be accepted. And again, that's because it affects the timeline and it affects the ability to give all applications a fair and complete and transparent review. So I've on the calendar, as you can see, going down Thursdays and Fridays, starting with the 17th and 18th of August, are CoC competition days. Review and ranking work is predominantly being scheduled on Thursdays. Fridays I will reserve then probably for completing the consolidated application and whatnot. And of course I'll address any questions and issues that come up throughout. But that's a way to let y'all know that that's where the body of the work is going to be attended to. Let's see, so we've got the deadlines. The 18th is the deadline to submit any match and leverage letters. There are resources on the HUD Exchange in those, the application link that actually explain match and leverage if there's any question. I'm not going to do it because I always get them twisted in my head. But they're very clear, and the basics are match is required for anything but leasing, 25%, and don't provide any more than 25% for match. If you have other stuff you want to submit, submit that as leverage. You're only going to be monitored on the match. And the reason those documents have to be submitted to me is because I have to certify as the collaborative applicants representative that all of the files that are included in the CoC's overall priority listing have been reviewed for both internal thresholds, review and ranking process, and then HUD zone application thresholds. And so they're going to be looking for that stuff, and so I have to make sure that it's there as well. If that was first a requirement just last year, so it's not all that old. The CoC's monthly meeting on August 23rd is not going to be an all-out vote on the priority listing, but we will be able to bring some preliminary information to the CoC meeting in terms of a priority listing based on scores. Scores are one piece of it, but the scoring criteria, the actual scores based on data is one piece of it. The other piece of it is all of the narrative, the draft eSNAPS project application, and especially a look at data not only from the 16 and 17 pit and hick, but also what you indicate in your project applications are the local area's greatest gaps and needs. So we want to make sure HUD's, all through that NOFA is very specific that gaps and needs within the community have to be a priority in terms of review and ranking, and how a CoC prioritizes projects within that ultimate priority listing. And so this is going to be part of what we're going to be doing through review and ranking. Let's see, where are we? Okay, so then the week of September 4th is basically going to be the last week of the eSNAPS project applications, and that's what I do. I will be doing those reviews specifically while the review and ranking process is going on, so that at the point we've completed the review and preliminary review and ranking process, I can send your draft eSNAPS project applications back to you with any final questions or things that need to be updated or adjusted or whatever. Remember, through this process, you do not submit an eSNAPS until you receive an okay to do that from me. It's not the end of the world, but if you do submit it, then it's going to take probably a 4-day turnaround and some work on my end to make sure that it's returned back to you so you can continue working. So just be mindful of that. Bear in mind that I'm updating and completing the consolidated application and the CoC's planning project application while all of this other stuff is going on. So it's a very busy time. The 27th of September is the last, or is the CoC's monthly meeting directly the day before the CoC application is due in eSNAPS. It is my goal to submit on the 22nd, which is the Friday before, just to allow for some glitches with eSNAPS, which seems to happen always without fail. Last year I got completely locked out and couldn't even access the information 72 hours before submission. So sometimes it's a panicky time. And all that's to say that somewhere in mid-September, roughly the 11th of September, the final priority listing recommendation or recommendations, depending on what happened, will go out to the CoC board for review and an email vote. And if there's any issues that come out of that, then we will have the 27th, the day before, to do any final actual in-person kind of voting or whatnot. The goal is to make sure that everybody is aware of the priority listing, and we've talked to all of the successful and the not successful draft applicants to ensure that everybody's well informed and everything's copacetic on that point. Beyond September 28th at 5 p.m., no applications will be accepted, so that's a drop dead. And then we'll all take a break, I'm sure. Questions on the overall CoC competition timeline? All right. Next thing I wanted to go into quickly is the project, the overall packet one. And that has, this is the overall process and everything else. It hasn't changed really since we went through it a month or so ago, with the exception of deadlines have been updated throughout. And this is a partial listing of what needs to be included for submission into the competition, internal competition. One of them, this is an update right here, art report 0703. If you downloaded this packet one early on, it's going to have an incorrect report on it. So be sure that you have the latest and greatest, which is this art report. And I will be, let's see, I don't know if I have it up here right now. Okay, I will send out or have in upload hopefully by tomorrow, or actually I'll send it out by email since it's so timely. Sarah from OHOP, Sarah Carrillo from OHOP, had some questions on the 0703 and how to include the information and what the reporting dates are. And Justina, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first date would be April 1, 2015. Second,
Correct.
April 1, 2016. Third date, yep. April 1, 2017.
Yep.
And where it says select CoC, leave it blank.
Correct.
Okay, if you connect or if you check that box for CoC, you're going to get all of the CoC projects in there. And so I will, Sarah provided a screenshot that I'll just send out so that y'all have that. But that was something we talked about in review and ranking in the data work group last week, and we had the clarity on it today. So was there anything else from that, Just, that came out of that?
No, that pretty much covers everything, other than the effective date should also be April 1 of 17.
Okay, yes, effective date, April 1 of 17. And that should get you to your information.
Yeah.
The other thing that's coming up in questions is on the APR, and it's at the end of this document, I think. The APR and the HUD form 570 and the HUD form 2880. Wait a minute, sorry. Take that back. Okay, so the APR should be pulled for April 1, 2016 through March 31, 2017. That may not comport with your actual program year. Don't worry about it. This is something that we've come to over time as a way to ensure that everybody's got apples to apples in terms of performance, period. So make sure it's April 1, 2016 through March 31, 2017. This is the process. We've gone over this before. Nothing has changed here except the deadline was updated. Review and ranking hasn't changed, with the exception of the work group on Thursday. We came to a couple of priority pieces for new projects that came in based on overall CoC needs. And that's information that will come out today as well, or later on today or tomorrow. And so for new projects, the priorities aren't complicated, and they'll be added into this document. Non-funded areas of the CoC would be the first priority for new project applications, just because that's the right thing to do. Second priority would be for non-funded, currently non-funded agencies filing new project applications. And that is only because of CoC interest in diversifying the grantee pool and the ability for other community providers and members and whatnot to participate in the CoC overall. Not specific to funding competition, but encouragement overall. And then the last is any of the new project types or reallocated types would be considered, you know, as eligible and, you know, prioritized in terms of the competition. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong again, Justina, but I think the discussion around not prioritizing one of those new project types over another is that the CoC or the group didn't feel that the CoC was either enough informed or prepared to make those kinds of specific project type priorities. Yes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but be mindful, because as the CoC gets better in terms of understanding its data and how all of the project types affect all of the others, you know, these processes in terms of priorities will be updated. And then nothing else changed in this document other than these resources here. And this is a document, this certification for a drug-free workplace is one of the documents that you do have to upload. So make sure that that's downloaded and completed with these dates right here, May 1, 2017, somewhere between May 1 of 2017 and September 28th of 2017. So if your document is before May 1, then you need to redo it. And then the Form 2880 must have been signed between the same dates. So I know that that's auto-populating, but just double check that the dates are correct on it. And then here's all the links to all of those sites that we've already visited. Questions? All right. Let's go through. So the renewal, this is the supplemental application, and it's PDF and it's also in Word for both renewal and the new and reallocated, so that you can complete them electronically if you want to. And this front matter is the same here in terms of contact information and all of that. The supplemental information is new from previous years, and this goes directly, both of these actually go directly to HUD's HUD's own threshold reviews and keeping up in terms of that competitiveness. So the ELOCS printouts for the last two grant closeouts and one showing current draws. So only closed out grants. So if you're currently operating a CoC grant, you'd only want an ELOCS printout showing your grant period, and all we're looking for is that you've made a draw if your program is operating long enough to have made that quarterly draw. If it just started July 1 and you haven't made a draw, that's fine. Give us a note so that we know. Is there a process to name the supplemental items? Oh, yes. Thank you. Just make sure the supplemental item and your agency's name is in the file name.
Okay, you don't want me to do, so I've got 3 separate printouts from ELOCS. If it's one file, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you're going to send that consolidated file for your application. If you have 4 applications, you're going to do that for each application. I just want to be able to know that it's your file. So I probably should make it easier on myself and make it more standardized, but as long as I know who it belongs to, I'm okay.
Yeah. Okay, it's really up to you. I was just trying to think if there was an easier way for you to receive this stuff, but that's fine. No problem.
Yeah, no worries. And then the 2 grant closeouts, that means completely closed, prior grants. If your grant is only operating 2 years, you're only going to have 1 year. And just make a note of that and say, my grant's only 2 years old, or whatever it is. Just, you know, if you can't respond to a piece of information, at least give us a note as to why. The other is the top 5 identified gaps or needs in your local community. The CSBG gaps or needs analysis was a suggestion because that's something that the community action agencies do. But ultimately, we're looking for any document that's going to support the needs or support showing what the needs and gaps are within your local community. One of HUD's threshold questions is, does the project address an identified need in the community? And so we need to have a way to address that. So if it's a needs assessment that your local DHS or United Way office does, be sure that it includes information in there that's relevant to homelessness in your local area. And please let us know where that's located. If you don't send just the excerpt that's identified clearly where it originates, and you send the whole document, at least let us know where to find it in there. Because those needs and gaps will be put together in a document for the review and ranking team to have during the second phase of that process. And then threshold requirements, this hasn't changed from last year at all. So if you have any questions, please ask sooner than later. You can check a box and ask a question as well there. We have built into the review and ranking timeline an opportunity to come back to all project applicants if there are any questions one time for quick response. And nothing else has changed here. In the narratives, be sure if you have an opportunity to provide a narrative, and especially if your project, if the performance doesn't accurately reflect what's going on in your community or your project or whatever, make sure that you do provide those narratives because they do make a difference. And
now,
yeah.
On factor 3A, I just wasn't really sure because on the policies you have like the main heading, conflict of interest, and then the subheadings. Do you want X's beside each of those items or just the main heading?
Oh, just the main heading.
Okay, perfect. That's what I did, and then I went back and I thought, now am I really answering this right? So, okay.
Well, so I guess that's a yes and no. And everybody should be honest because these are Hearth Act pieces. So they're there for a reason. If in your conflict of interest policy, for instance, it doesn't like say agency / individual, blah, 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 or, you know, include both of those, do let us know. And I think that may be more of a discussion for overall CoC stuff.
Okay.
Making sure that the CoC policies include those for sharing with y'all, kind of a thing. I don't know. Okay. But yeah, fill out what you can.
Okay.
All right. So then we have the new and reallocated, which is really similar. This whole front piece is the same. Even though the information is included here, obviously if it's a new project, you're not going to be able to include that information for ELOCs, but you can for the community gaps and needs. And then the threshold information, the questions are just a little bit different because we're looking to get you know, more information obviously than just the basics. So there's a little bit different nuances in the questions. And of course, the project application itself is going to have completely different questions. Make sure that you look at the goals, the HUD goals, and if there's any specific goals your agency would want to do with a new project, please be sure to list them there. And this is important here. If your HUD application doesn't include this information below here, please provide supplemental information for that. Because again, these are threshold questions that HUD's going to be looking for. And then there you go. Just same information. It didn't change from last year either. Questions there? All right. Scoring criteria. These are the scoring criteria is up as well for both new and reallocated and renewal projects. And there's also a map, and the map just shows you the question on the supplemental applications or the scoring criteria document and the point value and where they can be found, just for a quick look. So you don't have to like scroll through the scoring criteria doc. The other thing that you need to look at is this attachments doc. It was uploaded last week when the last ones were uploaded as well. And it includes all of the information that needs to be submitted. So I don't think we've added anything new to that. And I wanted to let you know on the agenda here down at the bottom, we just realized today and haven't worked it completely through yet, but apparently the project applications have a little bit different information, or in the where you look at the populations being served for the projects, and we can't directly get to the CH, the chronically homeless question in the bonus, the way it's stated in there. Question 4B in the project application doesn't have that information the way we want it now. So we're going to have to do a little bit of update on that maybe, but we'll let you know as soon as we figure that one out. Couple of other things really quickly. I just determined a webinar that I'm going to send out to everybody for Monday, August 14th, 2:30 to 3:30, and I'll go through the review and ranking process and all of that work that a really good team of folks completed on y'all's behalf last Thursday in Salem. We've changed the process a little bit to hopefully get to some more meaningful conversations, and I think it's going to go well for the CoC in that regard. Also wanted to ask, please, if there's questions, especially related to the data or CoC process, please ask them of myself or of Justina, especially on the data stuff. Don't go to Rena. That's no disrespect to Rena whatsoever, but she's not involved in these conversations in terms of policy and whatnot. And I don't want her to feel like she has to take responsibility for competition stuff. So please make sure that you ask those questions of us, and we can move forward that way and keep the pressure off of her. I think that's pretty much what I have. Oh, and we've already gone through the HUD stuff, so that's it for me. And we're right at 3 o'clock. Are there any questions? Awesome. Then I'm going to cut you all loose and Thank you for paying attention and being here, and we'll just
Thank
keep.
you, Joe. This helps.
Yes, ma'am.
It helps put this all together for me, really, into one packet. So thank you for taking your time.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I will record, or I mean, it is being recorded, so it'll be uploaded just like
Perfect.
the other one was. So.
Okay, perfect.